YouTube, knowledge is self-determination. So I wanted to come at you guys with a story today from the Final Call. For those of you who don't know what the Final Call is the Nation of Islam publication. Support Black media. The Nation of Islam's paper, Final Call, is Black media. It is media controlled and commentated on, reported on, edited by Black people. Support Black media. All the different people on YouTube, like Dr. Boyce Watkins, Tariq Nasheed, Dr. Umar, Claude Anderson, The Advice Show, even Cynthia G. I mean, and it's just countless people. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are trying to control the narrative from a Black perspective. That's why, irrespective of what YouTube does so far as, or rather what advertisers do with YouTube so far as pulling ads from certain videos, it doesn't matter to me. You know, YouTube doesn't support anything of mine, so I don't need ad revenue from YouTube. So there you have it. But in any event, I'm gonna go ahead and get into the story. The title of the story is called "What's Driving Black Violence and Deadly Conflict." And please leave your opinions in the comment section also after hearing this story, and let me know what you guys think. But this story was written by Brian Crawford, a contributing writer of the Final Call. He, I guess this is anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get into it. Chicago. Every day, Black communities are inundated with violence. Whether it's heinous acts committed against one another, encounters with police, or simply watching television or listening to music. Violence has almost become a structure that Black people not only embrace, but in many ways openly promote. Of course, it helps to understand the root of the problem, which is in an overwhelming number of Black communities, particularly in large cities. Is almost always tied to abject poverty, substandard living conditions, poor or failing schools, general lack, and feelings of hopelessness and despair. How many of you guys can relate to that feeling growing up in the hood, growing up in the projects, and feeling a complete sense of hopelessness, worthlessness, like your life means nothing and won't ever mean anything? Remember in Boys in the Hood, with the mother said to Ice Cube, "You ain't shit, and your daddy ain't shit, you ain't shit," something like that. She said something to that shit. "You ain't shit, you ain't gonna never be shit." She said something to the effect to Doughboy like that. But in any event, I'll continue on. Sorry for that digression. When those conditions exist, it creates a perfect storm for crime and ultimately violence to manifest themselves. In recent weeks, several incidents have played out in the media where Black people seem to just snap and commit heinous acts of violence. Are these incidents and many others proof that Blacks are more prone to violence as the popular narrative goes? Or is there something deeper going on? Now, I'll read the caption under the photo here. Pennsylvania State Police. This is about Steve Stevens. Pennsylvania State Police investigate the scene where Steve Stevens, the suspect in the random killing of a Cleveland retiree posted on Facebook, was found shot dead April 18th in Erie, PA. Acting on a tip, Pennsylvania State Police spotted Stevens, 37, in Erie County, in the state's northwest corner, and went after him. After a brief chase, he took his own life, authorities said. Okay. Mental health and the Black community. The first thing we need to acknowledge is that as a people, we are in unspeakable pain, quotes Terry Williams, noted author of the book Black Pain and staunch mental health advocate, told the Final Call, Quote, there's violence everywhere we turn, and it's very difficult to navigate how you move through the world. For black people, there is so much pain and suffering, and we haven't been able to process it and get help because so many of us don't believe in going to talk to a mental health professional. Black people, by and large, suffer through unspeakable amounts of both direct and indirect trauma. It's also important to note that blacks in America suffer from intergenerational traumas that have been passed down from the time their ancestors first set foot on the shores of this country. On this very subject, Mental Health America wrote, quote, historical adversity, which includes slavery, sharecropping, and race-based exclusion from health, educational, social, and economic resources, translates into socioeconomic disparities experienced by African Americans today. Let me read that again. On this very subject, Mental Health America wrote, quote, historical adversity, which includes slavery, sharecropping, and race-based exclusion from health, educational, social, and economic resources, translates into socioeconomic disparities experienced by African Americans today. Socioeconomic status, in turn, is linked to mental health. People who are impoverished, homeless, incarcerated, or have substance abuse problems are at higher risk for poor mental health, end quote. This is something that people have said for years. Sociologists, they study these things. These things are facts. When the people have been downtrodden and stepped on and beaten on and treaded on and socially disenfranchised, economically disenfranchised, pushed back, abused over and over and over again for hundreds of years, then you set them free without treating the conditions that have actually arose from the mistreatment for hundreds of years of chattel slavery, disenfranchisement, so on and so forth. You are going to have a whole nation full of people who are mentally ill, and that's what you see in the black community. All this pent-up anger, hatred, and frustration, and most of us don't even understand why we feel the way we do growing up in those situations. I know for me, I had a feeling I had to get out. You know, I had to get out of the hood because I felt claustrophobic in the hood. After growing up there and seeing the same things happen year after year, I felt claustrophobic. I had to get out. You know what I'm saying? People want to stay loyal and dedicated to their hoods. I'm loyal and dedicated to me first and foremost, because without me, I don't have an existence. You know, without the ability to physically manifest in this reality, meaning having a life that isn't cut short. You know, anyway, I'm digressing too much. I'm sorry, guys. But, I mean, I understand this. I understand this mentality that black people have because I grew up in those conditions, in those environments. I'm from Baltimore. That actually wasn't set up to happen that way. It just kind of did. But I'm from Baltimore. Anyway, I'll continue on. Mental Health America also uncovered a number of staggering statistics relating to black people as well. While 13.2%, 45.7 million people of the U.S. population is black, 16%, 6.8 million people have a diagnosable mental illness. That's a lot of people. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Office of Minority Health found that black people are 20% more likely to report serious psychological distress as compared to whites, are more likely to harbor feelings of hopelessness, worthlessness, and sadness than whites, and black people who live below the poverty line are 3 times more likely to report psychological distress compared to those living above poverty. So, finances, your economic status, money, These things can have a direct effect on your mental health. I mean, because you're constantly in a state of stress when you don't have enough money to pay your rent, to pay your light bills, to get your kids food, to buy them new clothes, to buy them new sneakers. You know what I'm saying? To get back and forth to work, to eat today, to eat tomorrow. You know, I mean, it can beat you down. It can really beat you down. The most distressing finding is that while black teenagers are less likely than white teenagers to die from suicide, they are much more likely than their white counterparts to make an attempt at taking their own life. That's interesting. One of the things I'm very aware of and very much attuned to is that black people really struggle with mental health issues, quotes Dr. Cynthia Grace, a licensed clinical psychologist based in Harlem, told The Final Call. There has definitely been an intergenerational transmission of trauma, and we've gotten to the point where the accumulation of violence has gotten really high. And I've mentioned this next lady that I'm about to speak on real quick before in other videos, Dr. Joy DeGruy. She does lectures on post-traumatic slave syndrome. Very interesting stuff. You should check her out. A lot of the mental health issues that we have in the black community go unaddressed. And one symptom of that is crime and violence that we commit against ourselves. Also, the extremely high rates of suicide among young black people between the ages of 14 and 25 has increased exponentially. So, what that says is there is a real loss of hope because people are less inclined to take their own lives if there is a sense that things can be better. Dr. Grace noted the reason mental health has such a negative stigma among black people is twofold. The first is that blacks are largely in denial about their trauma. And second is black people place such a high value on character to discuss their problems with someone exposed as vulnerability, which makes black people uncomfortable. That's kind of deep. That's really deep. So, blacks are prone to wearing masks to show the world that they're okay. But on the inside, there is so much deep and troubling turmoil that the outward representation of that pain oftentimes is crime and violence. Wow. Quote, too many of us witness or experience something horrific. Then we get up the next day and go to work or school like nothing ever happened, said Miss Williams. Quote, so many of our people are traumatized to the point where they can't really function normally. We try our best to hide our pain, and I'm of the opinion that there are many adults and kids who really need to see a therapist. How can you witness or experience a horrific act of violence and then try to go to work or school and concentrate on what you're doing? You can't. In the black community, there is a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, and what I'm seeing more of now is a lot of people are having panic attacks because they are dealing with so much trauma, said Dr. Grace. Many black people feel that craziness is a white thing, Dr. Grace said. There is also a feeling of seeing a therapist is a betrayal of their spirituality because it's an indication that they aren't strong believers in a higher power, end quote. Now, did you guys just hear what I just said? There is also a feeling that seeing a therapist is a betrayal of their spirituality because it's an indication that they aren't strong believers in a higher power. Basically, what she's saying is that we put so much faith into a religion that was forced on us. I mean, let's keep it real. Christianity was forced upon us. Our ancestors weren't Christians when they came to America, when they came across the Atlantic Ocean. They were not Christians. Christianity was forced onto them. You know? But black people feel as though it is a betrayal of their spirituality because black people do what? Puts it in God's hand. Put everything in the Lord's hand. If it was meant for it to be cured, then the Lord would cure it. That is a dangerous approach to take to your mental health. You understand? I'm not trying to make this about. Not trying to make this video an argument about spirituality or people's personal ideals or anything like that, or religious beliefs. I am not trying to make this a video like that. But black people, you have to be in the mind state to do for yourself. Stop waiting for a magical answer. Stop waiting for somebody to fix your problems for you. We have to fix our health. Look, if you feel like you're going crazy, you need to go get help. You need to go get help. Go get help. Stop waiting for people to fix you for you. You have to be in the driver's seat of your own life. You cannot be a passenger in your own life. You cannot be a passenger in your own life. You have to be in the driver's seat. I'll continue on. Dr. Grace feels many blacks don't seek help because they've been conditioned there to give all their problems to God and let Him work things out. Kind of what I just said. Violence as a public health crisis. First, I'll read this quote by Dr. Grace. A lot of mental health issues that we have in the black community go unaddressed. And one symptom of that is crime and violence that we commit against ourselves. Dr. Cynthia Grace, licensed clinical psychologist. And there's an actual graphic here, but I'm not going to go through the tediousness of trying to read that graphic and explain it to you guys. Violence as a public health crisis. In this country, the solution to crime and violence is to remove people from society by locking them up and throwing away the key. This proportionately affects black people, who make up just 13% of the U.S. population, but account for 35% of jail inmates and 37% of prison inmates, of the 2.2 million people currently incarcerated in this country. Gun violence, in particular, has been labeled by the American Public Health Association as a legitimate public health issue. In 2015, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention found that 1 million total years of life are lost annually in the U.S. due to gun violence. That is crazy. Additionally, homicide by gun in this country is 25 times greater than that of other high-income countries comparable to the U.S. Wow. However, more money is being pumped into the system every year for incarceration, as opposed to rehabilitation or even doing a deep and thorough study on the root causes driving the violence seen in black communities and how to reverse it. Did you guys just hear that? They don't want to fix the black community. Why? Because we are a commodity to the people in this country. We are the gross national product. They make money off our hides. They make money incarcerating us. They make money sending us to court. They make money, keeping guns and drugs in the community. Think about it. When have you ever known America to ever give up on an industry that generates billions of dollars a year? Drugs are a billions of dollars, tens of billions. I would say hundreds of billions of dollars a year industry, right? When I really don't want to make the video but so long because it's already going to be long enough. But man, look, it is in the benefit, in the interest of the people who call the shots to keep the drug game afloat, to keep it going, because there's money to be made in it. And then there's money to be made in the prosecution of people who sell drugs. They're controlling the game on both sides. So all they do is reap profits. That's it. When you can control the game on both sides, you always know who to bet on, because you're engineering who's going to lose in the first place. You're always going to make money because you can get it from either side. Anyway, if a lot of you guys can't figure this out by now, I'm not going to keep trying to explain it. But anyway, back in the 1980s, the CDC started treating violence as a public health problem because they saw an uptick in intentional violence. Dr. Obie Clayton, chair of the Clark Atlanta University Department of Sociology and Criminal Justice, told the Final Call. However, this can be traced back to the introduction of crack cocaine and increased drug use in the black community, which triggered an increase in violence. But at the same time, you had this epidemic of mass incarceration in the 1980s, when the prison population almost quadrupled. So intentional violence is a problem in this country in general, but we have a disproportionate amount. Oh snap! A disproportionate amount of it housed in the black community. Now I'm gonna stop right there. I'm not gonna read the entire article because it's pretty long, but you guys get where I'm coming from. And so far as the police, the incarceration, and the introduction of drugs into the black community, look at my videos on the history of police uh, in my video list. I don't think I've added to a playlist. I probably should create a playlist for those videos. But check out those videos to get some more insight on the mass incarceration of black people and the introduction of cocaine and just the history of police and their history with black people in this country. But that's all for now, guys. I'll update you guys with some more news stories in the near future. Like, learn, and subscribe. I'm out. Peace.